What's up? How you doing? Here we are, beautiful Saturday evening. Got to pick up the Saturday Evening Post, sit out here with some Country Time lemonade, and read the Post and take a sip every once in a while. One of those days. Nice and blue sky, even though it's evening, we still have a little bit of time where the sun is up. So I'm a big fan of magic. I've always been. I think most people are fans of magic. Now, I understand it to be magic. There are some people that are using magic to convince people that it's supernatural. They have powers, and that's never the case. So the honest ones, they let you know it's just magic. I, years ago, went to see Penn and Teller. This was when they were first starting out, and it was a messy show. They did their little magic. Back then it wasn't as developed as it is now, but back then they did their magic, and then at the end they ran around with spray guns, paint guns, or whatever it was. They made a mess. If I were the owner of the theater, I would have been like, do not invite these people back again. Or, that might invite them, but if they ever try and rent this place, say nay, nay. So anyway, they did that, and I've seen them many, many times throughout the years, and every year they got better and better, and now I think they peaked. Got called up on stage twice, Penn and Teller show. One time I remember the trick, I was the punchline, and it was those naked women cards, and I had one of them, and I was the punchline. But the thing is, I was looking the other way, so Penn Jillette was looking around. He's like, I need volunteers. He was trying to pick people, so he starts picking. He needed like 5 people, and then he came over to my side, and I was like, looking around so I wouldn't make eye contact. That to me was signaling, don't call me, I'm not interested. And the more I did that, the more I would see him zeroing in on me, and he did, and he came over, and I see, corner of my eye, I could see this, you. And I was like, I'm not gonna look. And then I look over, and he's looking at me, and the hand is pointing at me, so I got up there. Once you're up there, the spotlights, you don't see the audience with spotlights in your eyes. So, I felt like I was up there alone. Anyway, that time and another time I got called up, David Copperfield, or was it Chris Angel? Chris Angel. Yeah, but not the actual act. They had, like the warm-up act, in between act, where they go and change their outfits. So the main magician went to the back. I think it was, I'll tell you who it was. I know who it was. Let the fire department go. That dude, Shimmeling-a-ling. Yeah. So I went to see him, had really good seats, and it's an emergency somewhere, Stressful job they have. So Shimling was the magician. We were there that night, and every so often he'd go and change sets, change clothing. So during that period, they have other magicians that come out and they do their little sideshow. And they picked me. They asked this woman, so they picked a woman, and they asked her, who do you want up there with you? I didn't know this lady, so she picked me. She said him. So I went up there, and they did the mind reading thing. So I was up there, and they had to guess what I was thinking without me telling them. Now, obviously, they're not really reading my mind. It's a magic trick, and I was in on it, so I knew how it was done. Right? So I knew how it was done because they gave me the information in my ear. They whispered what was going to happen, so I knew how they knew what I was thinking. And so they did that trick. I was up there, got a little round of applause. Then I sat down, But I've always been a fan of magic. I saw David Copperfield many, many times. All right, I am back. Got an interruption there, So starting to lose the sun. We're starting to lose the sun. Still, there's light out, but interruptions. Sometimes you have to respond. What can you do? That's the way it goes. Anyway, so what was I talking about? David Copperfield, maybe? I think so. Yeah, so I saw him many times throughout the years. He's gotten duller and duller as time has gone on. When I saw him originally, back in late 80s, early 90s, he was cutting edge. I mean, he was good. He was, full of that big magic, big tricks, big music on the big speakers by Bose. And it was enjoyable, And back then you knew less of how the trick was done, which I'm going to get to in a second. So he was great. And then, my kids got a little bit older, and I said, you know what, let's go see David Copperfield. And I don't want to say it was a disappointment. The magic was smaller. It didn't have that, like my kids would have been more fascinated with big magic. And he did these little, story tricks, traveling back in time and all that. And I was like, all right, Anyway, so he's gone a little bit downhill from the time that I first saw him. I saw Lance Burton many years ago. He was awesome, off the charts, awesome. His magic was just flawless. Lance Burton. Then I saw Criss Angel. Great show. We were like right there, right next to him. Enjoyed that one. My kids were there. They saw that. They were, blown away for the time. They remembered it. You ask them now to be like Criss Angel, because they were little back then. Who else did we see? I mentioned Penn and Teller, obviously. We got to meet Penn and Teller. I have pictures with them. I've got pictures with them a few times throughout the years. So, they always do that thing at the end. They go out in the hall there, and you get to meet them for a few minutes. David Copperfield, first time he said, "Oh, I'll be outside signing autographs." I thought that was like a privilege, which it was. But I go, how's he going to sign thousands of people? There was like a couple thousand people in that theater. I go, we're going to be out here for a few hours. David Copperfield. It's going to take a long time. And then we're in line, and I'm noticing the line's really moving. We're barely stopping. We're taking steps. And I could see him now. And then I go, what's he doing? How is it that fast? So then I realized when we got there and he signed, it was like an X. Did an X thing in a line, and that was it. He doesn't talk to you much. Penn and Teller talk to you a lot. Like, anything you want. You could be there for like 10 minutes talking. They'll talk to you. First time I had Teller, who doesn't talk during the show, but he talks one-on-one with you because he can talk. He speaks perfect English. And Gillette, Penn, he was very good. I enjoyed him. Tall guy. I have a picture with him. So, I'll say this, that I thought Lance Burton was the most, and Schimling. I got to meet him too after the show. We had backstage passes. It was during a time where you had to wear a mask, So he put his on, we put our on, we took a picture. They should have said, hold your breath, take the mask off, and take a picture now. Okay, put it back on, start breathing. So we have these pictures like we just got out of surgery. But he was great. We spoke to him for a few minutes. People in front of us were pissed off. They're like, we paid good money to take pictures with him, not with the mask on. And the guy, he's like, oh, what can I, like it's hotel policy. I think they walked out of line. They didn't even bother. They just took off. Fed up. So we talked to him. He's amazing. The card magic that he does, amazing. So I'm a huge fan of magic. They will tell you that all that seance stuff, all that psychic stuff, all that stuff is garbage. Very easily explained away. Rule of thumb is that it's all fake. Very simple. None of them are real. They're all doing magic. They're all fooling you, cold readings and stuff like that. So magicians, if they're honest, will tell you, all those spiritual people that pretend they're communicating with the dead. That's all nonsense. It's all fake. It's all fake. If you don't like that it's fake, you know, what am I going to tell you? That's the reality we live in. That stuff is all fake. It's the easiest way and the most legal way to scam people. You say you're a psychic, you put a thing on your door, people will pay you money to lie to them, take their money, they can't do a thing about it. Wow. It's like a powerful M80. Now people are going to get on the internet. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? What was that? I just heard that. So anyway, yeah, I was there one night. It was like a lightning flash with a loud explosion. Happened towards that direction. And I was like, wow, what was that? And then I went on the internet and I looked, and it was a transformer blew up about a mile from here. Created a whole bright sky for, you know, about a half a second. So anyway, yeah, that's how it is. All these bunko people that go out pretending to heal people and communicate with the dead and predict the future accurately and all that, they're all BS artists, all of them. All of them. Don't waste your money on that. They're conniving, they're sneaky, they will rip you off, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, there's nothing. It's the only thing that you can legally steal and not get in trouble for it. So, yeah. If you're a fan of magic, you realize all that. And I'll tell you another thing. I'm always curious. How did they do that? How do they do that? You know, because it looks very impressive when you don't know how it's done. But I know I'm going to regret it the second they tell me how it's done. The trick's ruined, you know. But you're curious. You want to know. You want to know how that was done. So I know a bunch of these tricks, the mind-reading tricks, you know, I know how they're done. And before I knew, I mean, obviously I knew it was a trick, that they weren't really reading your mind. That's non-existent. That's, you know, once again, a scam if you believe it. But the second you realize how it's done, or somebody tells you how it's done, or show you how it's done, then you're like, oh, it becomes a letdown. Every magic trick that I have seen, how it's done, is always a letdown. It's always a letdown. It's because it's not impressive anymore. You know, you want it to be magic, but it never is. There's a guy on YouTube, and he's been up here at the Magic Castle. I don't know his last name. First name is Jason. He's like a card magician. You can find him on the internet. Sits at a table. If you want to find out if it's him or not, he has a watch. I think it's an analog watch or something. He puts it there so there's no cutaways, so you don't think he's like cutting and splicing things together to make the trick look impressive. He's impressive. He's impressive, you know, with the cards. If you take him to, you know, the underground gambling places where no one knows him, although nowadays with the internet, they could find you. Especially, you know, if you tell him your name and then put card magic. But he's amazing. He can find aces in there. It looks like he's mixing. Obviously, something's going on where he's not really mixing. And then the 4 aces, he'll find them randomly. Boom, boom. Well, here they are. He can pick any cards out. You know, it's like amazing, amazing, and it's so smooth that it looks like he's really doing it randomly. When in actuality, he's manipulating the cards that way. But if you want to check him out, he is amazing. Jason, Card Magic, YouTube. You'll find him, trust me. There's another guy too, he's like a chubby guy. He's always at the end saying, you know, if you were impressed by that, then it's worth a like. That guy is good too. I watch him. You know, card magic is very difficult to master. You gotta get the fingers to do certain things. But I enjoy that kind of magic more than, you know, like the disappearance of the Statue of Liberty, which once you realize, or once you find out how that's done, I say realize, like, you know, you're sitting there and you go, oh, now I know, you realized it. No, I mean, once you see how it's done, it's a letdown. So isn't the walking through the Great Wall of China, so isn't disappearing of a 737, I think. When you see how it's done, it's like, oh, that's how we did it. All right. So not that sharp anymore. That's why I recommend, but I don't follow it, that if somebody says, let me show you how I did that, say no. I prefer the mystery. I can't do it. I want to know. I want to know how it's done. So there's a basic formula for all of these. Once you understand the basic formula, then you go, okay, I know how he did that. But card magic takes many years. My favorite card guy was Cardini. Now he wasn't like playing poker or things like that or blackjack, but he was making things appear out of nowhere. He would do that a few times and cards were flying out of his fingers. Now you say, okay, he's hiding it here, he's hiding it. There's only so much material you can hide. This guy was like throwing decks out, 52, 50, things were flying out of his hands like, appearing out of nothingness. Cardini, check him out. Cardini, awesome. But yeah, everybody likes magic. Magic is fun. You go to a kid's birthday party, if they have a magician there, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. I remember one time I was at a birthday party and I was sitting at an angle where I could actually see how the trick was done. And every time I would see it, I go, man, I'm glad it's me and not some kid yelling, I know it's done. But I was at an angle where you could actually see where they were, doing all that hiding stuff. So anyway, and I will say one of my favorite Columbo episodes is it was a guy, the great, I want to say Mancini, but it's not. It's not Houdini. Who's that guy? The guy that was the father of the Partridge family there, Keith Partridge. Cassidy, David Cassidy, Sean Cassidy. What was the father's name there? Jack Cassidy, the great. It was a great something. Can't think of it right now. I'm thinking Mancini is stuck in my head, but I don't think it was Mancini. Anyway, there's an episode he was on a couple of episodes at least, Jack Cassidy. It's like a bit of a, I don't know, he gives the impression like he's a vomit bag, just his whole, even the acting, the way he's, talking, one of those guys you want to, another one. I'm sure if you look up Jack Cassidy, magician, Columbo episode, you'll get in. It's on the tip of my tongue. I know it. I just can't right now. The great something Dini, I don't know. Anyway, he was on it. He commits a murder, and then he figures a way to make his voice come from someplace where he's not. Columbo, of course, figures that out ahead of time, always goes to the right guy from the very beginning, and then at the end he busts him. I think he died, he died in this, he got burned, died, I think he went home lit, it's like drunk out of his mind. That's why he got drink in moderation. Up here in Hollywood too, he went in his apartment, he was drunk out of his mind, I think, and lit his cigarette, and then he fell asleep. Well, the cigarette fell on the blankets caught on fire, and he burned to death. At least that's what I think happened. I will check it after, because it's been many years I've read about this. But I think he burned himself somehow. I think it was from a cigarette thing, and he was too drunk to, do anything about it. The great Cardini, that's the guy that does the cards. What's his name? Anyway, so I love that episode. Then the other episode, now I know we're going on a tangent to, go into a different direction here with Columbo, but I just have to say the one with Leonard Nimoy, where he plays a heart surgeon, and I think, was it the grandfather from the Waltons that was on that? That one, you know, all of these are setups by Colombo. They would say, if it ever went to court, they would say, well, he was involved with the setup. And, you know, the judge would say, okay, I'm throwing out the case. You know, they can't have police officers that create the evidence by setting you up. So there was Leonard Nimoy was like a heart surgeon. Does the operation on this doctor that he wants to kill, but he wants to do it in a way that it doesn't look like he killed him. What better way than to be the surgeon that puts sutures inside your body that dissolve, the kind that you're not supposed to have in there. The first thing they're going to do is an autopsy, and they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, this guy had heart operation like 3 days ago, and the sutures dissolved. Who's the surgeon? Who put these in here? And they would immediately arrest him. So I don't know why that was a clever thing, but entrapment, Colombo, every episode, entrapment. You know, a lot of them, you know, he sets it up so that, you know, there's one where he rents out a room, and but it's in his name, but it's supposed to be the killer, or the guy who's trying to, there's a guy who's being set up for the murder by some other cop guy, and Colombo says, this is my place, I just rented it. So that's entrapment, sets him up. But you know, big fan of Colombo. But anyway, so I went on a whole thing there. So Jack Cassidy played the great, man, I gotta look it up. It's gonna frustrate me now. Cardini, Mancini, Pandini, no. The great Santini, something like that. I think I'm getting closer. Santini, the great Santini. I'm going to go with that for now. I think it was the great Santini. I don't think it was the great Carlos Santana. No. But yeah, he would do the magic and a little round of applause. But yeah, I'm a fan. I used to Doug Henning. Remember Doug Henning years ago? And then Blackwell. I think it was Blackwell was the other guy. They were big when I was younger. They were the big names. But it's you know, the human mind finds clever ways to fool people, and the worst thing it can do is give credit to the spiritual for doing all these. It's all the time. It's the humans. The humans are always doing it. You know, they always have this thing, you know, the humans will do the BS, and then they'll say, oh, it's supernatural. It never is. That's why I like Scooby-Doo. They always expose, you know, what they claim or what the show presents as supernatural. They always expose it as people. People. It's always people. Always. You know, haunted houses, all fake. If you think you found one, you're looking at a fake one. It's all fake. That's Incredible did that thing on out here. There was a place, was it Toys R Us? It was haunted. They went there. Turns out it was a whole setup, all fake. It's not haunted. If somebody says this house is haunted, go live there for a couple of nights and explore it. Nothing will happen. And if something does happen, it's only because it's people doing it. It's always people or the wind. So I remember the summer of '74, my uncle, that was like the summer of magic. He bought all these magic tricks and he was doing them on me. And my favorite one was the vase with the ball in it, you know, you know, he had a red one. His was red, mine, I have one right here, it's blue. So, you know, it's this thing here. You would take the top off. The ball would be there, and then he would, you know, remove it again. The ball would be gone, you know, nothing, and then he would put it back in, and the ball would be back, and then, you know, he would have the ball in his hand, and one time he took the ball, has a seam that goes around, you know, it's connected to two half pieces. So he took this ball, put it in his mouth, and he bit it and broke it in half, and then somehow it was whole again, you know, in the vase. It was whole, and then the trick ended. So I was like, I gotta find out how he does this. I gotta find out how he does it. I didn't know, you know. So they went out one night, and I happened to be home alone. I was home alone. They went out. Everybody went out. They left me alone. And I went through the whole house looking for the magic trick. So I found the magic trick. It was in some little, not a closet, but kind of like a closet thing. And I went in there and I got it, and I started doing the magic trick. I was like, okay. And the ball disappeared, ball disappeared. And I was like, I got power, I got power. The ball was there, and then the ball was gone. And somehow the ball falls out of my hand when it reappeared, falls out of my hand, hits the floor, and breaks in half. And I was like, as they say, mortified. I got scared. I go, now he's going to know that I messed with it. Although I could have just kept my mouth shut. He wouldn't have said anything. Right? I would have been like, I don't know. He wouldn't have said anything, though. So anyway, it breaks in half. And nearby there was a carpenter who had a little shop there. And I ran downstairs. He was still open. And I said to him, can you glue this? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, your uncle was here yesterday, and he gave me this ball to glue, and apparently, he goes, it didn't hold. And I go, my uncle was here, so he knows about this. This never healed on its own. He came here and glued it. And the carpenter guy exposed to me that it was nothing more than a trick, which I knew it was once I found it, right? But, this was my favorite one of all. My favorite one, the disappearing ball. Still to this day, I love this magic trick. Love this magic trick. I just love it. Get the ball in, gone. So that was the summer of magic. He had a few other things too, but this one was the one that I enjoyed the most. And like I said, once I found it, and I never told him, even when I got older, I never said, that magic trick. It never came up ever in conversation again, even though 74 was a long time ago. And I had many conversations with him after that. Even when I became an adult, I never said, hey, remember that summer you had all that magic stuff going on? Remember that ball? I don't know, maybe he would say, I don't even remember. I don't remember that at all. But maybe he would remember some of it. But not that the ball broke. I would say to him, I found that trick, and then I started doing it when you weren't there, so I knew how it was done. So, yeah. That's why you should have a few of these. That way you can break one of them in half and then pretend you fixed it. So, yeah, that's it. But what really annoys me, people that abuse magic. They do the magic the conventional way because that's the only way it can be done, and then they pretend that they have some kind of supernatural ability. No one does. It's always made up. Rule of thumb, that's the rule of thumb always. If you think that there's some a psychic out there that's really good, it's only coincidence. They're just guessing. They get some things right. Matter of fact, average is like 2% of the time they get something that's pretty accurate, 2%. The other 98%, it's BS. And the time that they get it right, it's just, you're basically doing what are the odds type thing. You know how history works out. You just say something that happens all the time in everybody's life. And eventually you'll find somebody where that becomes an accurate, prediction. And if you do it enough times, you'll get a following because there'll be a few people that, you hit it right on the head on something. But anybody can do that. It's called good guessing based on what usually happens in reality. So we just, we always have been doing this since the beginning of time. Everybody's trying to fool the other person with their supernatural connections or their supernatural abilities. All BS, all BS. Yeah. I could smell somebody's cooking. Remember when I was a kid, during the fall time, nice and crisp air outside, and around 6 p.m. the mothers back then would start cooking stuff, and you'd smell that fragrance in the air. You'd smell like spaghetti sauce and chicken and all kind of good stuff. And I would be outside and somebody's cooking. We usually ate dinner late. I remember the other kids in the neighborhood, I gotta go eat dinner. It'd be like 5:30. I'm like, 5:30? You're gonna be hungry by 8. We would eat like 7:30. And I know this because we'd watch, remember what was that show called? The Newlywed Game with Bob Eubanks. That would come on at 7:30, and I remember we would be eating at that time. And then the news, world news, was on at that hour. You don't have that gathering anymore at the kitchen table to watch the news. When I was younger, everybody would be like, yeah, I was watching the news last night. Tom Brokaw, Ted Koppel, what was the other guy there? Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, and then the old timers know Walter Cronkite. That even sounds like a guy with a hat on that has a ticket. It says press on the side. It even sounds like that. It's like when you were younger, in his class, if you asked him, hey, Walter, what are you going to be when you grow up? He would have said, my name dictates that I become a newsman. I want to become a journalist. I'm Walter Cronkite. That sounds like you're going to be some guy who writes for the New York Times, or you have your own newscast on, 6 o'clock every night. Walter Cronkite. Was he supposed to be like the honest guy? Yeah. So we don't watch news like that anymore. Now, you go on the internet, and any second that something breaks, it'll say, breaking story. Here you go, what's going on? Back then you had to wait for specific times to get the update. And I remember back then, you don't have this anymore either, the interruption of your favorite show to get a special report by ABC News. They don't do that anymore. I remember when the Challenger blew up, they would interrupt everything. Special report, special this, special that. Now you don't need that. Now 24/7, as long as the reporter files his thing in and they put it up, it's there. You don't have to go and look for anything. So yeah, every so often, every day you have something happening. Every single day. This planet does not rest. There's always something, some tragedy, some violence, always. And then every so often you have some huge thing happening. 9/11, Challenger blowing up. There's always something on this planet. We never say, it's been like months. Nothing's happened. No. I guess then, I don't know. Would it be boring here? Be like, it's so boring. Nothing's happening. I don't think so. I think it would be okay. I'd rather have nothing happening than all this crazy stuff. Just sit back, enjoy life for about 85 years. Right? Maybe less, maybe more. It's like this planet, every 100 years, brand new people. Brand new people. Every 100 years, everything's new. It's like, bring the new people in every 100 years. So, like right now, 2025, right? In 2125, yeah, there'll be a few people left, but the majority, the overwhelming majority, brand new people. Brand new people. And it just seems like we're all the same, like we've always been here. Getting dark. And I'm getting a little hungry. I could go for, what do I feel like right now? Clam chowder. Clam chowder with some nice freshly chiseled pepper, black pepper, and those crackers. You know, you put them in there, mix them up, and then you get a spoon and you start feeding yourself with that spoon. I go for some nice clam chowder. You know who has good clam chowder? But it's almost like you have to take out a mortgage now to go get clam chowder. Neptune's Net. Neptune's Net has really good clam chowder, but it's expensive. You look at clam chowder, you're like, yeah, that should be more than, you know, $7, right? It's a lot more than that. But I like going up there, especially on a night like tonight. I get a big thing of clam chowder, fill in the crackers in there, black freshly squeezed pepper, and then mix it in, watch the steam, you know, go off of it, and then start eating it. Delicious. Love clam chowder. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.